Can I tell you something that feels a little bit vulnerable? Every single time I see Barack Obama, I smile. And it's not because I'm starstruck. It's not because I agree with every single thing that he's ever done. Not because I think that he's perfect. I smile because something about him evokes hope in me. And recently, while reading about the new Obama Presidential Center being built in Chicago, I found myself reflecting on why. What is it about certain people that causes us to feel admiration? Why do some people inspire us in a way that almost feels emotional? And perhaps more importantly, how do we know when admiration is healthy versus when we've placed someone on a pedestal? Because if we're being honest, most of us have done both. Maybe it was a celebrity, maybe it was a pastor, a mentor, a therapist, a parent, maybe it was someone you loved. So today, I want us to talk about the psychology behind admiration. Because I think admiration can be beautiful, but I also think that putting people on pedestals can quietly set us up for disappointment, for resentment, and even heartbreak if something doesn't go our way. So I want you to think about someone you genuinely admire. Not necessarily someone famous, just someone that makes you think, I really respect that person. And I want you to think about, what is it about them? Is it their confidence, their kindness, their discipline, their leadership, their authenticity? Because most people assume admiration is about the person, but psychologically, admiration is often about values. When we admire someone, we identify qualities that matter to us. And that's why different people admire different people. One person sees Obama and admires leadership. Another admires composure. Another admires his intelligence. Another may admire the historical significance of his presidency. The same person, different qualities, because admiration tells us more about ourselves than it does about them. Think about that. The people you admire are giving you clues about what you value. So you may be like, why Obama? Why Obama matters so much to people? Who is he? So now let's talk specifically about Barack Obama. For many people, especially Black Americans, Obama represented more than politics. He represented possibility. For generations, Black people were told explicitly and implicitly what positions of power were available to them. Then suddenly, a Black man becomes president of the United States. Whether people supported his policies or not, the image alone challenged assumptions. I remember seeing children who suddenly had a different answer when someone asked, so what do you want to be when you grow up? Because representation changes imagination. Let that sink in. Representation changes imagination, and imagination changes possibilities. And that's why the Obama Presidential Center feels bigger than a building. It's connected to a legacy. It's connected to the idea that leadership doesn't only belong to certain people. And that's something worth admiring. But here's what I think we have to be careful of. Admiring what someone represents is not the same thing as believing they are flawless. So that's the dangerous shift from admiration to idealization. There's a psychological term called idealization, and most of us do it. Idealization happens when we stop seeing the whole person. Instead, we create this perfect version of them in our minds. We focus on strengths, we ignore the flaws, we erase complexity, and eventually, we're no longer relating to a real person. We're relating to a fantasy. And you may be like, well, what's the problem with that? The problem is, no human being can live inside a fantasy version of themselves. Eventually, they disappoint us, not because they changed, but because reality finally caught up with our expectations. This happens all the time with celebrities, with politicians, with spiritual leaders, even with our romantic partners, maybe a supervisor, again, a therapist, sports personnel. We put them on pedestals. Then we're devastated when they act human. Now, I want to go a little bit deeper and talk about attachment wounds and pedestals. Because I don't think pedestal building is always about admiration. Sometimes it's about attachment. Sometimes it's about unmet needs. And other times it's about longing. When we haven't fully developed trust in ourselves, we often look for certainty in other people. We unconsciously decide they know more than me, they're stronger than me, they have it all figured out. And if I can stay close to them, maybe I'll feel safe. Sound familiar? This happens in relationships all the time. We fall in love with potential. We fall in love with an image. We fall in love with what someone symbolizes. And then we're shocked when we realize that they are human. People who struggle with anxious attachment sometimes do this more frequently, not because they're weak, but because idealizing someone can temporarily create a sense of security. We call that a false illusion. And if they're perfect, then maybe they'll never leave. If they're perfect, then maybe they can save me. But no human can carry that responsibility. So healthy admiration, it looks different. Healthy admiration sounds different. Healthy admiration says, I respect you, not I need you. Healthy admiration says, I can learn from you, not I can never be like you. Are we seeing the difference? Healthy admiration also says, I have qualities I appreciate, not you're superior than me. Notice the difference. One creates inspiration, the other one creates dependency. One expands your sense of self, and the other shrinks it. And when I admire someone in a healthy way, I don't lose myself. I become more connected to myself because I start asking questions like, what is it about this person that resonates so deeply? And often the answer is, they're reflecting qualities I want to strengthen within myself. So maybe the question isn't, who do I admire? Maybe the better question is, what do I admire about them? Because the answer might tell you something important about who you are becoming. And for me, when I think about Barack Obama, I think about composure, I think about leadership, I think about vision, I also think about possibility. But those qualities don't belong exclusively to him. They're human qualities. They're qualities that all of us can cultivate in our own lives. And maybe that's the real purpose of admiration, not to convince us that someone else is extraordinary, but to remind us of what's possible within ourselves. So the next time you find yourself admiring someone deeply, pause and ask, what is this person teaching me about what I value? What quality am I recognizing? And how can I nurture more of that quality within myself? Because admiration can be a beautiful teacher as long as we remember that the person we admire is human. And so are we. Thank you for hanging out with me today to talk about admiration versus idealization with a little bit of Barack Obama in it. And if this conversation made you think about someone you admire or maybe someone you accidentally place on a pedestal, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, remember, you don't have to become someone else to be inspired. Sometimes inspiration is simply recognizing a piece of yourself in another person.